in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where civilized beings dared not speak above a whisper, one name sent shivers through even the most hardened criminals. Krix Venth. The mere mention of those two syllables could empty a cantina faster than a reactor breach warning. And honestly, the reputation was well-deserved. Krix belonged to the Scaleth species, a race that evolution had seemingly designed with assassination in mind. Standing 7 feet tall on powerful digitigrade legs, his obsidian black exoskeleton absorbed light like a hungry void. Four arms moved with mechanical precision, each ending in retractable claws sharp enough to slice through reinforced durasteel. But the truly terrifying feature was his ability to shift his carapace color, becoming virtually invisible against any background. Perfect camouflage, natural weapons, enhanced reflexes, and a complete lack of what other species called conscience. Really, it was almost unfair. The numbers spoke for themselves. 847 confirmed eliminations across 3 galactic sectors. Not 846, not 848, exactly 847. Krix kept meticulous records, because what was the point of being the galaxy's premier killer if you could not properly document your achievements? His client list read like a who's who of galactic power brokers. Corrupt senators who had outlived their usefulness, rival crime lords who had forgotten their place, whistleblowing scientists who had seen too much, corporate executives who had embezzled from the wrong cartels. Each target had believed themselves untouchable, protected by armies of bodyguards, state-of-the-art security systems, or sheer geographic isolation. They had all been wrong, spectacularly, fatally wrong. Take target number 712, for instance. A Zephyrian arms dealer named Tok Belus who had holed up in an orbital fortress surrounded by 3 defensive satellite networks. The fortress boasted energy shields powerful enough to withstand a fleet bombardment, automated defense turrets covering every approach vector, and a personal security detail of 50 elite mercenaries. Krix had eliminated him during his morning shower. The poor fool never even knew what hit him, or considered target number 693, a paranoid Thylorian banker who never left his underground vault complex, surrounded by biometric scanners, motion detectors, and enough armed guards to start a small war. The man had not seen natural sunlight in 6 years, convinced that isolation meant safety. Krix had poisoned his dinner with a neurotoxin that mimicked natural food poisoning. The banker died believing he had simply eaten bad shellfish. The criminal underworld spoke of Krix's methods in hushed, reverent tones. His approach to each contract was a masterpiece of planning and execution. He studied his targets for weeks, learning their routines, their weaknesses, their fears. He identified every possible security measure and found ways around them. Then, when the moment was perfect, he struck with surgical precision. No witnesses, no evidence, no survivors. His fees reflected his perfect record. A standard elimination started at 50 million galactic credits. High security targets commanded twice that amount. Seemingly impossible assignments, those could run into the hundreds of millions, and clients paid without complaint, because hiring Krix Venth was not just purchasing a service. It was investing in a guarantee. The money had afforded him quite the lifestyle. His personal ship, the Silent Death, was a masterpiece of Scaleth engineering combined with the finest technology credits could buy. Adaptive stealth systems that could fool any sensor array, quantum encrypted communication networks, a weapons locker that would make most planetary militaries weep with envy. His private quarters occupied an entire deck furnished with artifacts looted from the homes of former targets. Thylorian silk tapestries worth more than most beings earned in a lifetime. A dining table carved from genuine Altarian crystal wood. Art pieces that museums would kill for, assuming they knew where to find them. But the true luxury was not material. It was the respect. The fear. The absolute certainty that when someone contracted Krix Venth, the target was already dead. They just did not know it yet. Krix had built his reputation one perfect kill at a time, and that reputation had become his greatest weapon. Targets often died of fear before he even reached them. Rivals gave up contracts rather than compete. Potential enemies chose different career paths entirely. For 23 years, Krix Venth had been the undisputed apex predator of the galactic underworld. His name was synonymous with death itself, which made what happened next all the more humiliating. Because target number 848 was about to do something no one in 847 previous attempts had managed. She was going to survive, and then she was going to offer him a job. The message arrived through Krix's usual channels, encrypted with military-grade algorithms and bounced through 17 different relay stations across 4-star systems. Standard protocol for the type of clients who could afford his services. What was not standard was the fee being offered. 200 million galactic credits up front, with a 50 million bonus upon completion. Krix stared at the holographic display floating above his command console, his 4 eyes processing the numbers with typical Scaleth precision. In 23 years of professional killing, he had never seen an offer this generous. Either his reputation had finally reached its true market value, or someone was very, very desperate to see their problem eliminated. The client identified themselves as the Merchant Guild Coalition, which explained both the astronomical fee and the desperation. The MGC controlled roughly 60% of all legitimate trade routes in the Outer Rim sectors, along with a healthy percentage of the not-so-legitimate ones. They were the kind of organization that did not make requests, they made statements, usually with the implied threat of economic warfare backing them up. But apparently someone had been making their lives difficult enough to warrant hiring the galaxy's most expensive assassin. The target briefing materialized with a soft chime. Captain Maya Torres, human, female, age 28 standard years, current occupation, independent freight hauler, and apparently, according to the extensive documentation, a massive pain in the Coalition's collective posterior. Krix studied the holographic image rotating slowly before him. The human appeared ordinary. Brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, dark eyes that seemed to hold some kind of perpetual amusement, average height and build for her species. She wore standard spacer gear, nothing fancy or expensive. Certainly nothing that screamed galactic threat or elimination priority. Humans. Krix had encountered them before, of course. Hairless primates from a backwater world who had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel and decided to spread themselves across the galaxy like some kind of enthusiastic infection. They were known for being unpredictable, illogical, and prone to making decisions based on something they called emotions rather than proper risk-benefit analysis. In other words, they were sloppy. And sloppy targets were easy targets. The briefing files painted a picture of disruption that was almost impressive in its scope. Captain Torres had somehow convinced dozens of independent traders to band together, forming cooperative shipping networks that bypassed guild trade routes entirely. She had organized boycotts of guild-controlled stations. She had even established alternative supply chains that cut guild profit margins by substantial percentages. All of this using nothing more than charisma, clever logistics, and what the files described as irritating persistence. No private army, no advanced technology, no political connections or family wealth. Just one human with a beat-up cargo ship and apparently unlimited audacity. Krix almost felt insulted. This was what warranted his legendary skills. A freight captain with delusions of grandeur? He had eliminated galactic senators with less effort than most beings put into choosing breakfast. The tactical assessment was laughably straightforward. Torres operated a single ship with minimal crew, usually just herself and perhaps 1 or 2 assistants. She followed predictable trade routes, docked at public stations, and maintained no significant security measures beyond standard anti-piracy protocols. Her ship, the Lucky Strike, was a modified Corellian light freighter at least 15 years old. Decent engines, basic shielding, and cargo capacity that suggested she was more concerned with profit margins than personal safety. The vessel had no military-grade weapons, no stealth capabilities, and no escort ships. In short, target number 848 was going to be the easiest 250 credits Krix had ever earned. He began his standard preparation routine with the kind of bored efficiency that came from decades of practice. Updated star charts showing Torres's recent flight patterns, detailed schematics of her ship's layout, background checks on her known associates, analysis of station security at her regular stops. Everything pointed to the same conclusion: one perfectly executed strike, and the Merchant Guild Coalition could return to their profitable monopolies. Captain Maya Torres would become nothing more than a cautionary tale about what happened when insignificant beings tried to challenge established power structures. Krix allowed himself a rare smile as he plotted his approach vector. Sometimes the universe handed you exactly what you needed, wrapped up with a bow and a ridiculous price tag. This was going to be almost too easy. The infiltration began exactly as planned. Krix had timed his approach during the Lucky Strike scheduled maintenance stop at Nexus Station, a mid-tier trading hub where security was adequate but not excessive. His adaptive camouflage rendered him effectively invisible as he slipped through the station's cargo bay, past distracted dock workers and automated loading mechs. Maya Torres had made the classic mistake of trusting standard station security protocols. Her ship sat unguarded, loading ramp extended, cargo bay doors open to the galaxy. It was almost insulting how easy this was going to be. Krix activated his personal stealth field and glided silently up the ramp. The Lucky Strike's interior matched his intelligence reports perfectly. Narrow corridors lined with conduit piping. A central cargo hold filled with shipping containers. Living quarters toward the bow. Engine room aft. Engineering spaces that provided plenty of concealment for a patient predator. His plan was elegant in its simplicity. Wait for Torres to complete her cargo loading. Follow her ship when it departed the station. Strike during the hyperspace jump when she would be alone and vulnerable in the cockpit. Single precise blow to the neck. Arrange the scene to look like a maintenance accident. Then escape in his own ship before anyone noticed. Clean. Professional. Profitable. The first sign that something was wrong came when Torres began talking to herself, not muttering under her breath, which Krix could have understood, not using a communication device, which would have made sense. She was conducting full conversations with empty air, complete with pauses for responses that never came. Okay, Lucky, I know you are feeling a bit sluggish on the port stabilizers, but we just need to make it to the Kepler system, all right? Torres patted the bulkhead affectionately while reviewing her cargo manifest. I promise we will get you properly serviced at the next major hub. Krix froze behind a stack of supply crates, his four eyes blinking in confusion. She was talking to her ship, as if it were alive, as if it could hear her, as if it might actually respond. This was not covered in any of his target profiles. And I know you don't like hauling those smelly fungal spores, but the pay is too good to pass up. Besides, it's just one run. Then we can go back to nice, clean electronic shipments. The human continued her one-sided conversation while performing routine pre-flight checks, completely unaware that death was lurking 15 feet away. Her casual tone and relaxed posture suggested either supreme confidence or complete obliviousness to danger. Krix found himself analyzing her behavior patterns instead of focusing on the kill. In his experience, targets fell into predictable categories: the paranoid ones who jumped at shadows, the arrogant ones who believed themselves untouchable, the desperate ones who knew death was coming but could not prevent it. Maya Torres appeared to be none of these things. She moved through her routine with the kind of comfortable efficiency that came from years of repetition, but she also stopped randomly to straighten a crooked picture frame or adjust a loose cable tie that served no functional purpose. Why would someone waste time on meaningless aesthetic details when there were actual tasks to complete? The loading process should have taken 2 hours according to station protocols. It took 4 hours because Torres kept interrupting her work to help other people with theirs. She assisted a struggling vegan trader with a damaged loader arm. She shared her lunch with a young Rhodian apprentice whose master had forgotten to pack food. She even helped station maintenance workers locate a missing tool, despite having no obligation to do so. Each act of random kindness forced Krix to revise his timeline. His perfectly calculated window for elimination kept shifting as Torres wandered off to solve problems that were not her responsibility. This was not normal behavior. Successful independent traders survived by focusing on their own interests, not by adopting every stray creature they encountered. The galaxy was a harsh place that rewarded selfishness and punished altruism. Yet Torres seemed determined to prove that basic principle wrong. When she finally completed her cargo loading and sealed the bay doors, Krix positioned himself in the ship's central corridor, ready to follow her to the cockpit. The hyperspace jump would begin within minutes. His moment had come. That was when the emergency klaxon began blaring. Attention all ships. Nexus Station is implementing quarantine protocols due to a suspected Rigelian fever outbreak. All vessels currently docked are required to remain in place for 72 hours pending medical inspection. Krix felt something that might have been panic if Scaleth were capable of such an emotion. 72 hours. 3 standard days trapped aboard a target ship while she went about her daily routine, completely unaware that the galaxy's most dangerous assassin was hiding in her cargo hold. This was not supposed to happen. His intelligence had indicated no scheduled quarantine protocols. Station medical records showed no recent disease outbreaks. The probability of such a coincidence was infinitesimally small. Yet here he was, crouched behind shipping containers like some common stowaway, listening to Maya Torres react to the news with characteristic human unpredictability. Well, lucky. Looks like we are having an extended vacation. Might as well make the best of it. I have got that stack of technical manuals I have been meaning to read, plus enough ration packs to feed a small army. She actually sounded pleased about the delay. Over the next 3 days, Krix learned more about human behavior than he had ever wanted to know. Torres maintained a routine that defied all logic. She exercised in the cargo bay every morning, performing strange ritualistic movements that served no apparent combat purpose. She sang while cooking meals, despite being completely alone. She talked to her ship's computer as if it were a trusted friend rather than a collection of circuits and programming. Most disturbing of all, she seemed genuinely happy. Not the manic happiness of someone losing their sanity, or the desperate happiness of someone denying reality. Just content. Satisfied with her life aboard an aging cargo ship, hauling freight between backwater systems for modest profits. When the quarantine finally lifted, Krix had missed his opportunity completely. Torres had never been alone long enough for a clean elimination. She had never followed her predicted behavioral patterns. She had never provided the opening his careful planning required. As the Lucky Strike departed Nexus Station, bound for the Kepler system, Krix remained hidden in the cargo hold, trying to process what had gone wrong. Perhaps target number 848 was going to be more challenging than expected. After 3 days of involuntary cohabitation with his target, Krix had recalibrated his approach. The stealth infiltration had failed due to circumstances beyond his control. Fine. Sometimes the universe demanded adaptation, and successful assassins learned to roll with unexpected developments. The second attempt would be different. Direct. Efficient. No room for human unpredictability to interfere with proper execution. Krix shadowed the Lucky Strike for 2 weeks, studying Maya Torres' movement patterns with renewed focus. She followed a predictable circuit between 6 different trading stations, picking up cargo at one location and delivering it to another. The routes never varied significantly, and her docking procedures remained consistently routine. Perfect for a sniper shot. Meridian Hub presented the ideal opportunity. The station's central marketplace featured multiple levels of commercial districts connected by open walkways and observation platforms. Hundreds of sight lines overlooked the main docking bay where Torres always moored her ship. Security was moderate but not excessive, focused primarily on preventing theft rather than assassination attempts. Krix selected his position with professional expertise. A maintenance balcony on level 7 offered clear line of sight to docking bay 12. where the lucky strike would arrive in approximately 4 hours. The platform was rarely used, accessible only through restricted service corridors, and provided multiple escape routes in case of complications. He assembled his rifle with practiced precision, a Thanagarian particle beam weapon capable of punching through personal shields and light armor at distances up to 2 kilometers. The targeting scope could track moving objects automatically, compensating for gravitational variations and atmospheric interference. One shot would be sufficient to eliminate the target and solve the Merchant Guild Coalition's problem permanently. All he needed was for Maya Torres to follow her established pattern, knock the ship, perform routine post-flight checks, exit through the cargo ramp, walk across the bay toward the station entrance, present herself as a clear target for exactly 47 seconds. Simple, clean, professional. The lucky strike arrived precisely on schedule. Krix settled into position, activated his scope, and prepared to earn the easiest 250 credits in Galactic history. That was when Maya Torres decided to make friends with literally everyone in the docking bay. Instead of following her usual routine, she began what could only be described as a social tour of the entire facility. She stopped to chat with dock workers about their families. She complimented a Twi'lek mechanic on his tool organization. She helped an elderly Corellian trader carry supplies to his ship, despite having no obligation to do so. Each interaction lasted between 5 and 15 minutes. Each conversation took place in a different location. Each new position required Krix to adjust his targeting solution and compensate for changing angles. "Come on," he muttered through clenched mandibles, tracking Torres through his scope as she wandered from person to person like some kind of diplomatic ambassador. "Just walk in a straight line for 10 seconds. That is all I need." But Maya Torres had apparently decided that today was the perfect time to become best friends with every sentient being on Meridian Hub. She shared snacks with loading crew supervisors. She listened to maintenance chiefs complain about budget constraints. She even engaged in what appeared to be a lengthy discussion about hydroponics with a group of agricultural traders. Krix found himself moving constantly, trying to maintain sight lines as his target meandered through the docking bay like a lost tourist. His carefully planned firing position became useless when Torres decided to help someone repair a malfunctioning cargo loader, placing herself directly behind a massive shipping container. After 2 hours of this madness, Krix relocated to a different platform that offered better coverage of the bay's central area. He was setting up his second position when disaster struck in the form of pure human randomness. Maya Torres dropped her data pad. The device clattered across the metal flooring and slid under a maintenance cart. As she knelt to retrieve it, she happened to glance upward toward the observation levels. Her gaze swept across level 7, paused for a moment, then continued scanning until it reached level 5, where Krix was currently positioned. Their eyes met through the targeting scope. For exactly 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Krix remained frozen behind his rifle, calculating the probability that a human could have actually spotted him at this distance. Maya Torres stayed crouched beside the maintenance cart, her expression shifting from mild curiosity to dawning realization. Then she waved at him. Not a threatening gesture, not a call for security. She actually waved, as if greeting a friend across a crowded room. Krix's professional instincts kicked in before his brain could process the sheer absurdity of the situation. Target was aware. Position was compromised. Execute immediate withdrawal protocol. He broke down his rifle with practiced speed and activated his personal stealth field. The plan was to retreat through the service corridors, reach his ship, and abort the mission until a better opportunity presented itself. The plan did not account for Maya Torres deciding to investigate what she had seen. "Excuse me," she called out, addressing the empty air where Krix had been positioned. "Are you all right up there? You seemed like you might need help with something." Station security turned to see what she was talking about. They saw nothing, of course, but humans pointing at observation platforms and shouting about mysterious figures tended to make security personnel nervous, especially when those platforms were supposed to be restricted areas. Did you see someone on level 5? The security chief was a no-nonsense Vulcan who took his job seriously. Well, I thought I saw someone with what looked like some kind of equipment. But maybe they were just doing maintenance work? Within minutes, security teams were sweeping every observation platform, maintenance balcony, and service corridor on levels 4 through 8. Their search patterns were thorough, professional, and completely incompatible with Krix's escape routes. He found himself trapped in a ventilation shaft, listening to security officers discuss search protocols directly below his hiding position. His stealth field was not designed for extended use, and the confined space was making his joints cramp in ways that Scallop physiology found particularly unpleasant. Nothing on level 6, Chief. Moving to check 7. Roger that. Keep sweeping. If there's someone unauthorized up here, we will find them. That was when Maya Torres' voice echoed through the corridor below. Oh, wait. I think I figured out what I saw. There's a maintenance crew working on the atmospheric recycling systems today, right? I probably just caught a glimpse of someone doing their job and let my imagination run wild. Sorry for the false alarm. The security chief paused. Maintenance crew? Sure. I saw the work order posted in the docking bay office. Routine inspection of the upper-level ventilation systems. Makes perfect sense that someone would be up there with diagnostic equipment. There was no scheduled maintenance, no work order, no reason for anyone to be in those areas. Maya Torres had just provided Krix with the perfect cover story for his presence, completely by accident. Stand down, the security chief announced. Resume normal patrols. As the security teams withdrew, Krix remained wedged in the ventilation shaft, trying to process what had just happened. His target had spotted him, called security, then immediately provided him with an escape route without even knowing she had done so. This was not how assassination attempts were supposed to work. When he finally emerged from the maintenance shaft 4 hours later, the lucky strike was long gone. Target number 848 was proving to be far more challenging than advertised. By the third week of what was rapidly becoming the most frustrating contract of his career, Krix had abandoned all pretense of subtlety. No more careful planning. No more waiting for perfect opportunities. No more hoping that Maya Torres would suddenly develop predictable behavior patterns. He was going to board her ship, eliminate the target, and collect his fee. Period. The Lucky Strike was currently in hyperspace, traveling between the Vega system and the Altair colonies. Maya Torres would be alone, isolated, and completely unable to summon help. Perfect conditions for a direct confrontation. Krix used a micro-torpedo to disable the ship's hyperdrive motivator, forcing an emergency dropout into normal space. Standard protocol required the pilot to immediately investigate engine malfunctions, which would draw Torres to the engine room where she would be conveniently separated from any potential weapons or communication systems. He materialized aboard the ship using a short-range teleporter, bypassing shields and hull plating entirely. His adaptive camouflage rendered him invisible as he moved through the familiar corridors toward the engine compartment. This time there would be no random acts of kindness to disrupt his timeline, no unexpected delays, no security complications, just one terrified human and the galaxy's most efficient killer. The engine room was exactly where his schematics indicated it would be. A cramped space filled with humming machinery, glowing conduits, and the distinctive blue glow of a hyperdrive core that was definitely not functioning properly. Maya Torres stood with her back to the entrance, running diagnostic scans on the motivator assembly. Perfect. Krix deactivated his stealth field and stepped into the doorway, blocking her only exit. His forearms spread wide, claws extended, creating an unmistakably threatening silhouette against the corridor lighting. Every aspect of his posture was calculated to inspire maximum terror. "Captain Maya Torres," he announced in the low, menacing tone that had preceded 847 successful eliminations. "Your interference with Merchant Guild operations ends now." Maya turned around slowly, diagnostic scanner still in her hand. Her expression showed mild curiosity rather than the expected fear. "Oh, hi there," she said cheerfully. "You must be the assassin the guild hired. I was wondering when you'd finally introduce yourself properly." Krix's mandibles clicked in confusion. That was not the response he had been expecting. "You will find no escape from this compartment," he continued, falling back on his standard intimidation script. "Your ship is disabled. You are alone. Prepare to face the consequences of your actions. Actually, before we get to all that death and consequence stuff, would you like some coffee? I just made a fresh pot, and it seems rude not to offer." Maya gestured toward a small thermal dispenser mounted on the bulkhead. "Fair warning, though, it's real coffee, not that synthetic stuff most spacers drink. It might be a bit strong for your taste." Krix stared at her. In 23 years of professional killing, no target had ever offered him refreshments during their own execution. "I am here to eliminate you," he clarified, wondering if perhaps humans had difficulty processing direct threats. "The Merchant Guild Coalition has placed a contract on your life. I am Krix Venth, and you are about to die." "Right, yeah, I figured that part out already." Maya moved casually around the engine compartment, checking readouts and adjusting settings as if a 7-foot-tall killing machine were not currently blocking her escape route. The whole sneaking around my ship thing was a pretty big clue. Plus the sniper rifle on Meridian Hub. Very professional setup, by the way. I was impressed. She had known. She had known about both assassination attempts, and she was discussing them like reviewing a performance evaluation. "If you are aware of my purpose, then you understand the futility of resistance," Krix said, though his confidence was beginning to waver. "I have eliminated 847 targets. None have survived." 847? Wow, that's quite a track record. Maya finally stopped her casual maintenance routine and gave him her full attention. "You know, I have always been curious about Scalith biology. Do those forearms give you any coordination challenges, or is it more like having extra tools available? And the color-changing thing, is that conscious control or more of an emotional response system?" This was definitely not proceeding according to any known assassination protocol. "I am not here to discuss my physiology," Krix managed, though he found himself oddly flattered by her genuine interest. When was the last time someone had asked him about his species without immediately trying to run away? "Oh, sure, I understand you are busy with the whole killing thing. But you have got to admit, we don't get many opportunities for cross-species dialogue out here in the Rim territories. Most beings just shoot first and skip the conversation entirely." Maya settled herself on a maintenance stool, apparently preparing for a lengthy chat. Her posture remained relaxed, almost welcoming, as if she were hosting a social gathering instead of confronting her own murder. "Besides," she continued, "I'm curious about your employer's motivations. I mean, 250 million credits is a lot of money just to eliminate one freight captain. The guild must be really upset about something." Krix's 4 eyes blinked in synchronization. "How did you know the contract amount?" "Lucky guess based on your reputation and the current market rates for high-profile eliminations. Plus, the guild's been hemorrhaging profits for months now, so they'd need to consider this a major investment to justify the expense." She was treating his presence like a business consultation, as if they were colleagues discussing market conditions rather than predator and prey engaged in a life-or-death confrontation. "Your disruption of their trade routes has cost them billions in lost revenue," Krix found himself explaining, though he was not entirely sure why. "They consider you an existential threat to their continued operations." "Existential threat? Me?" Maya laughed, a sound of genuine amusement rather than hysteria. "I'm just trying to help independent traders make a decent living. The guild's the one with the monopolistic practices and predatory pricing structures. Nevertheless, they have contracted me to eliminate that threat. Nothing personal, you understand. Simply business." "Oh, I get it. Professional obligation and all that. But here's the thing, Krix." She leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious. "I have been watching you for 3 weeks now, with assassination attempts. The surveillance patterns. on the tactical assessments. You are definitely skilled at what you do. Krix felt a small surge of professional pride, despite the circumstances. But Maya continued, I think you might be working for the wrong client this time. See, the guild didn't just hire you to kill me. They hired you to be their fall guy when this whole thing goes sideways. Explain. Think about it. Hiring the galaxy's most famous assassin to eliminate a nobody freight captain. That's not exactly subtle. When my body turns up, everyone's going to know exactly who was responsible. The guild gets to send a message to other troublemakers, and you get to take the heat for crossing a line that even the criminal underworld considers unacceptable. Krix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. He had assumed the high-profile nature of the contract was intended as a deterrent to other potential threats. But Maya's interpretation suggested a different motive entirely. Furthermore, she said, reaching into her pocket and producing a datapad, I have been doing some research on guild operations. Want to see what they have been up to while you have been focused on me. Against his better judgment, Krix found himself genuinely curious about what she had discovered. Target number 848 was turning out to be the strangest assignment of his entire career. Maya Torres activated her datapad with the casual confidence of someone presenting a quarterly business report rather than negotiating with a professional killer. The holographic display showed financial records, communication logs, and what appeared to be detailed surveillance footage. So here's the thing, Krix, she began, settling more comfortably on her maintenance stool. I have been letting you fail on purpose. Krix's forearms twitched involuntarily. What do you mean, letting me fail? Well, think about it. 3 weeks ago, you had a perfect infiltration set up on Nexus Station. I could have completed my cargo loading in 2 hours like usual. But instead, I spent 4 hours wandering around helping people. That quarantine announcement? I may have mentioned to Station Medical that some of my cargo originated from a system with recent disease outbreaks. Just being a responsible citizen, you understand. The pieces began clicking together in Krix's mind with uncomfortable clarity. The maintenance platform on Meridian Hub, he said slowly. Oh, that was my favorite part. I spotted you setting up your sniper position about 20 minutes before I pretended to see you through the scope. I had to time that perfectly so security would respond, but you'd still have escape routes available. Krix felt something that his species did not have a proper word for. Humans might have called it humiliation mixed with grudging admiration. His perfect professional reputation was apparently built on targets who had not been studying his methods and deliberately countering them. But why? He asked, genuinely confused by the entire situation. Why allow me multiple attempts? Why not simply alert authorities or hire protection? Maya's expression became more serious, though she maintained her relaxed posture. Because I wanted to understand how alien assassination techniques actually work. Human criminals are predictable. They use brute force, obvious weapons, standard tactics. But you represent an entirely different approach to problem solving. She gestured toward the holographic display, which now showed detailed analysis of his movement patterns, equipment signatures, and tactical decisions. I have been documenting everything. Your adaptive camouflage technology, your approach to surveillance and target assessment, your backup planning protocols. It's incredibly sophisticated stuff. The kind of information that could revolutionize personal security systems across multiple star systems. Krix stared at the data compilation. Weeks of professional work, analyzed and categorized like a research project. His legendary skills reduced to academic study material. You have been studying me, he said, not sure whether to feel insulted or impressed. Exactly. And now I have a proposition for you. Maya stood up and moved closer, though she maintained careful distance that showed respect for his personal space and potential threat level. I want to offer you a job. A job, head of security for Torres Independent Shipping. A base salary of 300 million credits annually, plus performance bonuses, full medical benefits, and profit sharing from our expanding operations. Krix's mandibles clicked in rapid succession as he processed the numbers. But 300 million credits per year was significantly more than his current average annual income from assassination contracts. And that was just the base salary, not including bonuses and profit sharing. You cannot be serious. Completely serious. Look, Krix, you are obviously incredibly talented at what you do. But you are wasting that talent working for clients who don't appreciate your true value. Maya activated another section of her data pad. Speaking of which, you might want to see this. The new display showed intercepted guild communications, time-stamped from 3 days after Krix had accepted the original contract. What am I looking at? Guild contingency planning. They are already discussing how to eliminate you once the job is complete. Apparently, hiring the galaxy's most famous assassin creates too much heat for their comfort. They figure it's cheaper to tie up loose ends than deal with potential future complications. Krix read through the communications with growing anger. The guild leadership referred to him as a disposal asset, and he discussed various methods for his elimination that ranged from poisoning to staged accidents to simply hiring a different assassin for a counter-contract. "They were planning to kill me," he said, his voice dropping to the low rumble that preceded violence. "From the beginning, yeah. You were never meant to survive this contract. The high fee wasn't a sign of respect, it was hazard pay for a suicide mission." Maya paused to let that information settle, then continued her pitch. "Now contrast that with what I'm offering. Steady employment with an organization that values your expertise. Challenging work that uses your skills without requiring you to constantly watch your back. And the chance to help build something positive instead of just eliminating problems for people who plan to eliminate you." Krix found himself considering the offer with surprising seriousness. His professional pride demanded that he complete the original contract, but his practical survival instincts suggested that Maya Torres was offering a significantly better deal than his current employers. "What exactly would my duties involve?" "Protecting our shipping operations from piracy and corporate sabotage, developing security protocols for our partner networks, consulting on threat assessment and risk management. Basically using your assassination skills to prevent problems instead of creating them." "And if I refuse?" Maya shrugged. "Then you try to kill me, I defend myself as best I can, and we see how this whole thing plays out." "But honestly, Krix, I think you are smart enough to recognize a good opportunity when it's offered." She was right, of course. The guild had hired him for a suicide mission while planning his elimination. Maya Torres was offering better pay, better working conditions, and considerably better long-term prospects. Plus, she had spent 3 weeks outsmarting him with nothing more than human unpredictability and careful planning. That demonstrated exactly the kind of strategic thinking he could respect. "I accept your offer," Krix said, retracting his clause in a gesture of non-aggression. "Excellent. Welcome to Torres Independent Shipping, Krix. Now, about that coffee." 3 days after accepting Maya's employment offer, Krix found himself questioning every life decision that had led to this moment. He was crouched in a ventilation shaft above Guild Regional Headquarters on Kepler Prime, listening to his new employer explain their infiltration strategy through a communication earpiece. "Okay, so the plan is really simple," Maya's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. "We walk in through the front door, I sweet-talk the receptionist while you slice into their security systems, then we grab the files and leave before anyone notices." Krix's mandibles clicked in exasperation. "That is not a plan. That is barely even a suggestion. Where are the contingency protocols? The escape routes? The tactical analysis of security response times? Oh, we will figure all that out as we go. Humans are really good at improvising." This was exactly what Krix had been afraid of. Maya Torres approached problem-solving like she approached everything else, with cheerful optimism and a complete disregard for proper planning procedures. It was going to get them both killed. Their objective was straightforward enough. The Guild's Kepler Prime facility contained financial records that would prove their illegal monopoly practices, along with evidence of bribery, extortion, in several cases of what most civilized species considered war crimes. Maya needed this documentation to present to the Galactic Trade Commission, which would theoretically shut down guild operations and allow independent traders to operate freely. Krix needed it because he was still extremely irritated about the whole plan to murder him after completing the contract situation, and destroying his former employers seemed like appropriate professional courtesy. The guild facility was a 40-story tower in the heart of Kepler Prime's financial district. 24-hour security, biometric access controls, armed guards, automated defense systems, and enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small planet. It was exactly the kind of target that required weeks of careful planning and precise execution. Maya's approach was to stroll into the lobby wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a box of pastries. "Good morning," she announced cheerfully to the security desk. "I have got a special catering order for the executive conference room. Something about celebrating their quarterly profit margins?" The guard, a bored-looking human in standard corporate security gear, barely glanced up from his entertainment feed. "You are not on the approved vendor list." "Oh, that's weird. Let me check my work order." Maya fumbled with her data pad, managing to drop it in the process. As she bent to retrieve the device, she somehow activated every single holographic advertisement display in the lobby simultaneously. The resulting chaos was spectacular. Dozens of commercial advertisements began playing at maximum volume, filling the air with competing jingles, sales pitches, and promotional offers. The emergency lighting activated. Security alarms began blaring. The entire lobby descended into sensory overload mayhem. "Oops," Maya said, loud enough to be heard over the cacophony. "I think I hit the wrong button." While every security guard in the building rushed to deal with the advertising disaster, Krix slipped through the chaos like a shadow. His adaptive camouflage rendered him invisible against the flashing lights and confused crowds. By the time building maintenance had restored normal lobby functions, he was already 3 floors up and accessing the central security network. "Piece 1 complete," he reported through his earpiece, bypassing another biometric scanner with practiced ease. "All surveillance systems are now showing recorded footage from yesterday. We have approximately 20 minutes before someone notices the timestamps. Nice work. I'm heading up to the executive level now. Just got invited to deliver pastries personally by a very apologetic security chief." Krix paused his infiltration. "How did you manage that?" Turns out the lobby incident was exactly the kind of distraction they needed to test their emergency response protocols. "They are actually grateful I gave them a chance to identify system vulnerabilities. Plus, I brought really good pastries." This was not how professional infiltrations were supposed to work. Yet somehow Maya's combination of accidents, friendly conversation, and baked goods had achieved better results than most carefully planned operations. 20 minutes later, they reconvened in the guild's central data archive. Krix had disabled all security measures with surgical precision, while Maya had convinced the archive supervisor to take an extended coffee break by expressing genuine interest in his stamp collection. "Okay, here's what we need," Maya said, accessing the main filing system with administrative credentials she had somehow acquired during her pastry delivery tour. Financial records showing their price-fixing agreements, communication logs proving they have been bribing trade commissioners, and anything that documents their plans to eliminate independent competition. Krix watched her navigate the database with surprising efficiency. "Where did you learn to slice corporate systems?" "I didn't. This is just basic file management. They are using standard Galactic accounting software, same as everyone else. The hard part isn't accessing the data, it's knowing what to look for." Within minutes, Maya had located evidence of illegal activities that would have taken Krix hours to find using conventional infiltration techniques. Her approach was completely unorthodox, but it was also remarkably effective. "Got it," she announced, downloading terabytes of incriminating evidence. Corporate conspiracy, racketeering, bribery, illegal market manipulation, and oh, this is interesting. Looks like they have been planning to expand their elimination services beyond just troublesome freight captains. There's a whole list of targets here. Krix reviewed the target list over her shoulder. Independent traders, reform politicians, investigative journalists, and several species rights activists. The Guild was planning a systematic campaign of murder to protect their business interests. This goes far beyond simple corporate competition, he observed. Yeah, they are basically trying to control all legitimate trade through fear and violence. Which means stopping them isn't just good business, it's a moral imperative. Their extraction was as smooth as their infiltration had been chaotic. Maya's new friend from building security personally escorted them to the lobby, thanking her for the delicious pastries and promising to recommend her catering services to other Guild facilities. Krix remained invisible until they reached their ship, still trying to process what he had witnessed. That was the most unprofessional, disorganized, successful operation I have ever participated in, he admitted as they departed Kepler Prime. Maya grinned. Welcome to human-style problem-solving, Krix. We make it up as we go along, but we get results. For the first time in his professional career, Krix found himself looking forward to his next assignment. 6 months after accepting employment with Torres Independent Shipping, Krix Venth found himself doing something he had never done in 23 years of professional killing, but he was enjoying his work. Not just tolerating it for the excellent pay and benefits, though those certainly helped. Actually enjoying the daily challenges, the problem-solving, the sense that his efforts were building something positive rather than simply eliminating obstacles for morally questionable clients. The transformation had been gradual but undeniable. Where once he had seen the galaxy as a collection of targets and threats, he now recognized a complex ecosystem of relationships, opportunities, and potential alliances. Working with Maya Torres had forced him to reconsider fundamental assumptions about how civilized beings interacted with each other. Take their current situation, for example. The bridge of the Lucky Strike hummed with activity as Maya coordinated shipping schedules for their expanding network of independent traders. What had started as a small group of rebel freight captains had grown into a legitimate alternative to Guild-controlled commerce routes. Dozens of worlds now relied on Torres independent shipping for essential supplies, fair pricing, and honest business practices. Krix monitored security feeds from his dedicated station, watching for signs of piracy, corporate sabotage, or Guild retaliation efforts. His job had evolved far beyond simple bodyguard duties. He was now head of a growing security organization that protected hundreds of ships, thousands of crew members, and millions of beings who depended on free trade for their survival. How are we looking on the Vega run? Maya asked, reviewing cargo manifests while simultaneously coordinating fuel supplies and scheduling maintenance rotations. All clear. 3 escort vessels confirmed, route security established, and early warning networks active. The shipment will reach Vega Station without incident. Excellent. What about the Guild response to our expansion into the Centauri sector? Krix accessed intelligence reports gathered through methods his former profession had taught him. They are attempting to undercut our pricing through predatory rate reductions, but their profit margins cannot sustain the strategy long-term. Estimate 4 weeks before they abandon the approach and try something more direct. More direct meaning more violent, almost certainly. The Guild leadership considers our continued existence a threat to their fundamental business model. They will escalate to more aggressive measures when economic warfare proves insufficient. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Then we will need to be ready for them. Any thoughts on defensive strategies? This was the part of his job that Krix found most intellectually stimulating. Instead of planning attacks against specific targets, he was designing comprehensive protection systems for entire networks of people and resources. The tactical challenges were far more complex than simple assassination work, requiring him to think several moves ahead while accounting for dozens of variables. I recommend expanding our early warning intelligence network and establishing rapid response teams at key hub locations. We should also consider diplomatic outreach to other organizations that have similar conflicts with Guild monopoly practices. Building alliances instead of just defending ourselves? Exactly. The guild's strength comes from isolating their opposition and dealing with threats individually. If we can coordinate resistance efforts across multiple sectors, their resources become stretched too thin for effective retaliation. Maya smiled. The expression that Krix had learned indicated genuine approval rather than mere politeness. 6 months ago I thought I was hiring a bodyguard. Turns out I got a strategic planning consultant and a tactical genius. Krix felt what humans might have called pride, though Scaleth had different emotional categories for such feelings. His species valued competence and efficiency above most other qualities, and Maya's recognition of his abilities carried significant weight. Your species has taught me to approach problems from perspectives I had not previously considered, he admitted. Human methods appear chaotic and inefficient, but they achieve results that pure logic cannot predict. Chaos can be a feature, not a bug, Maya agreed. When your opponents expect rational, predictable behavior, doing something completely unexpected can be more effective than any amount of careful planning. She activated a holographic star map that showed their current area of operations. Dozens of trade routes connected hundreds of worlds, each line representing commerce that operated outside guild control. The network had grown from Maya's single ship to a thriving alternative economy that served entire star systems. This is just the beginning, she said, gesturing toward the display. What we have built here could be a model for the entire galaxy. Independent traders working together, sharing resources and information, competing on service and efficiency instead of violence and intimidation. Krix studied the map with professional interest. The guild will not allow such expansion to continue unchallenged. They have too much invested in the current system to permit fundamental changes. I know. That's why I need someone who understands how they think, how they operate, how they will try to stop us. Maya turned to face him directly. I need someone who used to be exactly the kind of threat they represent, but who's chosen to build something better instead. The weight of responsibility was heavier than any assassination contract Krix had ever accepted. 847 targets had been isolated individuals whose elimination solved specific problems. This was different. This was protecting an idea, a movement, a vision of how civilization could function if beings chose cooperation over domination. But the work will be dangerous, he observed. The guild has resources we cannot match directly. They will use every method available to destroy what we have built. Probably. But that's what makes it interesting, right? Besides, I have got the galaxy's former top assassin watching my back. I like our odds. Maya's confidence was infectious, though Krix suspected that had more to do with her track record of impossible successes than simple optimism. She had turned him from hunter to protector, transformed a handful of independent traders into a galactic movement, and somehow made it all seem like a natural progression rather than a series of miraculous accidents. Very well, Krix said, activating security protocols for their next phase of expansion. Let us see how far we can push this experiment in civilized behavior. As the Lucky Strike jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward their next adventure, Krix reflected on how much his life had changed since accepting that first guild contract. Target number 848 had indeed survived. And now she was changing the galaxy, one impossible plan at a time, with the universe's most dangerous former assassin helping her do it.